And I think you need to accept it. Yeah. So again, welcome to this meeting, which in my head is about why we do these kind of courses and some of the hows we do them. And we actually do have Bonnie present here with us today, right now. You perhaps have a little bit of a stable internet connection. But if you have specific questions about the Scotland course, she is the one to ask. So my name is Katarina. I'm the director of Mimer Center, and we have Emily here as well.
I'm Emily Kison. I'm research director at Mimer Center. So we are collaborating with Bonnie and other people on this course to provide everybody with an opportunity to join us in research, discussions, even some amazing opportunities to learn from very specialized people in each location. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities to learn in this, and we're really excited to be collaborating and being able to provide everybody with this experience to join in this process.
And you will have to introduce yourself, Bonnie.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I'm Bonnie, and I know everyone here, so hello everyone.
Yeah,
I echo Emily. I'm really delighted to be involved in this collaboration. I'm very intrigued to see how it's going to be and what we're going to learn and the conversations that we're going to have. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating on many, many levels. I mean, you just have to go out and sit in the marsh with the ponies and it's amazing. So to add these other layers of what we're going to be looking at is really fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. So thanks everyone for making it possible.
yeah, and I will say the same, because we have some kind of ideas and structure for what we're going to do, and Bonnie has made a program for the days, but the content is partly depending on what you see and what you want to bring up, and all your competence and knowledge that you already have and will bring to the course. So we will provide our views and our knowledge, and we're very much looking forward to you doing the same and all the discussions that will come from that. We do have some idea why we do this. So why would we like to move out into the wild to look at horses? Then we have bunches of horses in our backyards that we can look at every day. And my thinking behind that, and what we have been discussing, setting up this course, is that we do not really know exactly what a horse is, because they are so domesticated, and we train them and we house them and we handle them in various ways, and then we'll have to ask how much of the horse is actually there after that process. And that will of course be different depending on how much we do that, all those things, and how much we know about horses and their behaviors and their needs and their welfare, specific welfare needs. But in my opinion, going out and look at horses who actually live more as they have evolved to do gives a lot of information that we then can bring home and apply to our horses at home, and also just help us with our understanding instead of just guessing. So that's a little bit where I come from, and I've been around and seen different groups of feral horses, and also been in Mongolia and seen the Przewalski horses. And I learn so much each time. It's mind-blowing, basically. So I'm a bit curious about what you think about this.
I think for myself, going out to Spain and studying with Lucy the Pachocas, that's a dedicated reserve for equine ethology. So it's like the gold standard of horses. You know, that the whole reason for its existence is for these horses to express natural behavior. So you're not having this interference of selecting stallions or, you know, moving them around or any of these other things. And it, the same as Katarina said, the things I learned from that just in the first day just blew apart everything I had understood about horses before that. And, you know, I'd read quite a lot and seen a lot of horses, and what I really value with this ethology is how it just enhances how we care, we train, how we think about our horses. And I feel like there's this separation between, oh, it's wild horses and it's all romantic and we'll go out and study them, but then there's the domestic. And actually there's a really vital interface between the two. And that's what I'm really passionate about. That's why I would like to be involved in and to do more courses like this, because the horses we're going to see, they're mainly geldings, with a few foremares, and so obviously they're not breeding and they are sort of managed, but still the behaviour that you can see from these free living horses is so close to, for example, Lucy's Pachokas, that you can see how much value you can gain from that. So there's certain things we're not going to learn about, like, you know, the social interactions between foals and the herd and stuff like that. But unless you're specifically interested in that, and for me, it's more of a broad sort of welfare umbrella, I suppose, or even well-being is a word I'd rather use, so that we can just have an idea about how the choices they would make, how they would live if they could, because then it just seems so easy then to bring that into domestication. And having seen that applied in various places and used it for solutions for everything I do now, just how effective it is, because it just makes sense to the horses. So it's really easy. That's what I love about it too. It's like you go out and learn all this stuff and it's complicated and you can get into all the behavior and everything. But when you just get sort of the basics of a horse, it's like something just falls into place and then everything seems to fit really well. So that's my passion with this, of just creating opportunity for people to experience that, because I don't see these as separate things. You know, the domestic horse and the wild or the wild living horses, there's such an important link between the two, and I think all of us who have horses would benefit from even a day out spending the sort of observing the lives of the horses like we're going to do. So that's my sort of broad overview of what I'd like to get out of this and offer and learn, and always learning.
Yeah, so I actively do research, and my passion aligns exactly with what Katerina and Bonnie are talking about. My focus is primarily on equine behavioral psychology in the context of horse-human interactions, but also focusing a lot on affiliative behaviors between horses and how we can learn from that and improve our welfare and understanding of horses that are in our backyard. And the best way to do that is to look at horses that are not under little management or semi-feral or feral herds, and then look at different ways that horses can or do choose to interact with each other and humans in different levels of managed environments. And so I've been collecting information and observations and data for many years now, a lot of which is on very large domestic herds that aren't handled much and have social flexibility. And being able to go and look at feral horses who don't have as restricted environments or have even more freedom of behavioral expression, as Bonnie mentioned, gives us a lot of insight into who horses are. And then if we understand who horses are without humans, then when we start adding ourselves into the equation, whether it's management or interaction, we can better understand their perspective of that interaction and what their behaviors actually mean. There's a lot in equitation and in a lot of equine science, there has been a lot of misunderstanding of a lot of behaviors over time. And so by recognizing and going out and looking at who horses are just without us can give us a lot better insight into why they choose different interactions or not choose interactions with us, and providing us a lot more insight into their psychology.
Anyone who has any questions so far or thoughts they want to share Lizzie. So you muted yourself.
Yeah, my dad's doing some DIY in the background and it's really noisy, so sorry if you hear a hammer. I think what you guys are doing is super important for horse people, but also like non-horsey people. Like since that thing that happened at the Olympics a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, so many people who I would have thought had no interest in horses have been kind of trying to talk to me about it. So I think opportunities like this are just so valuable for the public as well. So keep going. It's exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it is. We kind of almost forget like the horse is an animal, like we have them as a sport equipment and or pet, like something for us, or even in therapy nowadays. So it's seeing them as they have all to live and just observing them and learning from that. And in that, I also, my passion in this is also personal growth and learning for us. And I think paying attention to who we are when we observe them, like we know where we come from. We are having different kind of educations, going to schools, courses, learning, personal history, all that. That provides us with a lot of different lenses. So also being aware of not only learning to observe, but also asking the questions constantly. Who am I who is observing? Because that will actually color the picture we see. And people who have grown up with horses and gone through the traditional equestrian through their whole lives, they don't see their lenses because they are so like ingrained or so part of who they are. So starting to a little bit pick them off and see what happens is a challenge in itself. So that's also kind of where my passion is, like just that process of, am I seeing the horse or am I seeing who I think the horse is, basically.
I would just like to say that everything that everyone has said so far is just making me more and more excited to come on this course next week. Everything everyone has said is echoing my thoughts so closely. It's fantastic. So yeah, I don't really have anything to add because everyone has already said so many of my thoughts. But I think perhaps for me, the thinking about the contrast between a horse just being a horse or in a group of horses, and let's say, for example, a horse being ridden around badminton horse trials or at the Olympics doing dressage, the contrast between those two, and it's the same animal, for me is just incredible. And the human being is in the middle. And as you've said, Katarina, I think so many people forget that they are so important to the whole picture. And they forget, they see the horse as an object, which is what we saw, as Lizzie mentioned, at the Olympics. That's in the middle between the wild horse and the absolute athlete horse. Those horses were in the middle, and I think they're the ones that need our help most, probably. But yeah, so I'm really excited to meet everyone next week and carry on this discussion.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. What do you do, Anne, as in your?
I'm a horsewise. I have my own horses, and also I teach riders and horsemanship freelance, mainly taking from the human point of view, so the person's biomechanics and the person's psychology and basically how they interact with their horse, and just trying to turn their lenses on, if you like, and help both species come together in a more happy way. But I also have a science background, so I have an MSc in equine science, so the science of it is also of interest to me as well. So I just try to know horses, and I'm like you, a little bit a lifelong learner. I love learning, so anything I can learn is a good thing.
So great, thank you.
Nice. Well, I might just jump in as well. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Nice. so yeah, obviously really excited as well to welcome you all to the RSPB Inch Marshes Reserve, where we'll be able to go out and meet this the semi-feral conic herd that I manage as part of a larger project. And yeah, I think it's really exciting to see the kind of interest that everyone has, and certainly for us, obviously it's a conservation grazing perspective, and as a big organization that is now increasingly using equines as grazing tools, it's about how people work with those animals and manage them. And certainly that's how I got introduced to Bonnie, who has obviously been huge in setting this up and helping us with our work. It's just going to be so exciting to get everyone else's perspective on that side of the behavior, because it's not my expertise. I love what I do, absolutely, but yeah, I'm really excited to get more thoughts and learn some stuff myself as well. So really looking forward to you all arriving and being part of this.
What is your background, Theo?
So I used to be a gardener, and then I ended up getting into conservation, and just through the roles that I had, I was working with Welsh mountain ponies at the kind of southern end of the Snowdonia National Park in Wales. After that, I was working with domestic cattle. So my experience with kind of grazing and conservation grazing and management then got me the role up here in Scotland at the Inch Marshes Reserve, which is almost at the centre of the Cairngorms National Park. And yeah, we've slowly been increasing our herd of grazing ponies to manage an area that historically wasn't managed. And hopefully there'll be some exciting opportunities to hear a bit about the history of the reserve as well. My site manager and our warden, who have got a combined experience of 30 to 40 years here on the landscape, will hopefully also be able to give you guys some insight into a bit of a history of the land, and some more of what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, it's going to be great to have a group of people having discussions and talks. So really excited about that. Some fresh perspective,
Well, this is exciting. Thank you, Theo. The more we talk about this, the more excited. I mean, I was already excited to begin with, but it's really incredible. Thank you so much for providing this opportunity.
Not at all.
It brings up this important part of the context and the eco-psychology and the whole picture of horses actually have had a role in nature as grazers, and what happened when they were removed, and now when we introduce them again, and what happens with all their environment around them. How do they impact that? So I think that's your expertise. Like, we're going to talk about some of that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the conservation side of grazing horses or equines and the regenerative grazing, there's a few participants who aren't here, but who are particularly interested in that side of it. And so I don't think, well, I know I don't, and I'm pretty sure Emily and Katerina haven't got that much expertise into that, particularly in the UK landscape. So I've asked around to see if I could get some input from other people. Oh, here we go. Here's one of the people who's interested in the conservation side of regenerative grazing, just as I'm talking about it. So that's great timing. Hi, Henry.
Hi, guys. Sorry to join so late. My last meeting overran, but
no problem.
No worries. Welcome.
You're very welcome. So we're just going around talking about various subjects and questions that we might have for the course, and I was just about to talk about the conservation grazing side of the course that we're doing, and saying I don't have a huge background in that or a deep understanding of it, and so I've found a lady called Georgia Wingfield Hayes. So she wrote the article "Ponies: The Missing Ecological Link." I don't know if any of you, it was on the reading list, I think. She works for Wilderculture, or subcontracts to Wilderculture. So she's willing to give us a Zoom session and share her expertise. But she's asked if I could be more specific on what we'd like to hear about. So if you can all have a think of that, maybe drop me a line if there's certain areas that you want to know more about. I mean, obviously she can talk about rewilding and regenerative grazing, but if there are certain questions in there that you feel like you'd like answered, then if you could let me know so that I can let her know so that she can do the preparation. So she won't be able to be there in person, but we're going to be spending time in the education bothy at the wildlife park, possibly every day, depending on the weather. So we will actually have access to technology. So we'll organise probably around her availability when we can have a session with her. So yeah, I'll send out a message to the other participants as well, just to say if there's anything in particular you want to know, please let me know. Or if you know now, you can tell me now. I've got a pen. But I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
No, Emily and I have been around in a couple of places, and we have also separately been in different places where conservation is part of, or wilding or rewilding. And I love that we have this opportunity to talk to her. And so I have a couple of questions, and I can put them down on a list and send them to you if that works.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll also have a pre-recorded session with Rena from the Neff estate. So they've done quite a lot. So she's going to be camping on Exmoor. So I felt like it might be a bit mean to ask her to be on holiday. She's been very busy. So yeah, but we'll have you know, the information about what they've done at Neff and why they did it and all that as well. So.
That's great. We visited Neff, Emily and I, with Rena.
Yeah.
Last year, I think.
Yeah. Or 2 years, whenever it was we were allowed to be there.
I'm just realizing I've had a bit of tunnel vision about this in terms of thinking about the horses, but actually my other hat is as a zoologist. For many years I was involved with a conservation organisation called the Scottish Wildlife Trust, and specifically with an interest in grazing and managing uplands. So actually, yeah, I'm also, I've just, that part of me suddenly woken up and realised what an opportunity this is. So yeah, so again, that's fascinating, and it's going to be so interesting to discuss more about conservation grazing in general, but specifically the use of horses as opposed to other species. So that's maybe a question I would be asking, is how do you choose which species you're going to use as your grazers? Presumably depending on the habitats and what you're trying to achieve. So that's my question.
Yeah, that's actually I was gonna ask that same question. So yeah, glad you asked it.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to step in for as much as I possibly can about elements of this, because it's a big part of what I'm doing and also what I'm learning. So I'm not going to be able to answer every question. But with access to our partner reserves, who are also grazing with equines, we just had a visit yesterday actually from another RSPB group who are looking at what we're doing, because the landscapes are similar, and they're asking all of the kind of questions that I think you guys might also end up asking. So I'll try and put together as much as I can, you know, either in my head or potentially as a presentation to give you guys a bit of a talk about at least the RSPB perspective. I can't speak for every organisation, but at least where we come from in terms of why we chose the equines we chose, and historically across the UK, how that's benefited some of the reserves. Because I'm also in touch with people in the National Trust. So there's a few organisations that have all come together, and certainly, I mean, for us specifically, it's the Conic horse that has flourished and seemed to do really, really well. So certainly, I'll have plenty to say on the Conics for you all.
And I understand that there is a debate in UK about whether to have Conics or to have the more native breeds of Exmoors or Dartmoors, or
there certainly
also
is.
A question I have, like we could touch that hot potato perhaps a bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm the opposite of you, Katie, and I've come in to this course very much to look at the conservation grazing and the interest in the kind of wider horse behaviour in feral settings is much more kind of personal interest. I'm not allowing myself to branch out in quite so much because it's worth paying for the course. But equally, I was a zoologist and I've spent 12 years managing 100 Highland cattle doing conservation grazing. So I've got quite a good idea of what Highland cattle can do and how to kind of use the animals' kind of natural behaviours to get the results that I want by managing their densities and the time of year that they're grazing. But the site I manage now, I don't think is particularly suited to cattle. And while I know a lot less about equines, I think it could be more suited to their style of grazing. So what I'm really keen to learn about is how the behavior of horses and ponies in a fairly kind of low management system, how that can be managed, if you like, and what sort of results that's going to have long term on the habitat. You know, what are they choosing to graze on? How like strong are their grazing preferences? What's influencing where they graze and when they graze, and also into the welfare. Like, are we actually asking too much of them on this quite remote site? So that's my priority.
Yeah, and you mentioned low management. Like, I know where I have been that there have been questions about from mostly equestrian people feeling that the horses that are in these kind of reserves aren't getting the proper welfare. So part of what Emily and I do, we also teach about like what horses actually needs or what we think they need. That's the difference there too. I'm looking forward to some kind of discussions about that too. Like how do we involve people around us, like have an interest in horses, but maybe only have met horses in stables and in very managed environments.
And for me, I might be coming in backwards to everyone else because my experiences with cattle and livestock, and obviously the kind of welfare expectations culturally for them tend to be lower. Most of my work with horses and most of my riding has been in Ethiopia. And equally there, the kind of welfare considerations are even lower than they would be for livestock in this country. So it'll be very interesting for me, probably coming in from the opposite end to anyone with more experience working with equines in this country or in Europe at all.
Which from my perspective means a more enriching discussion. So I'm very glad you're here.
Yeah. Would you be able to join us, Lizzie? Out in the field?
I'm hoping I can join for some days, maybe not every day. I might, is Bonnie still here? I might just schedule with her later today and work out which days, as much as possible. I'd love to see you again.
Great. Because you have also your specific perspectives and have done some really interesting things with horses. So I'm looking forward to having you there.
Thank you. I'd love to film some as well.
Yes, please do that. Bring my cameras and my stuff, but you are the professional, so yeah.
We can. I think the more of this information we can get out, and the more of the discussions that can be shared, the better.
Yeah, totally my opinion as well.
I think.
Oh, sorry, go, Emily.
Oh, I was just thinking, going back to what Katarina was saying earlier, most people who think about horses do have just this, horse equitation or horse pony in the pasture, or even just feral horses. But what's often not considered is this environmental interaction and the context in which all of this takes place, and the nuances, the complexity. Obviously, you have a horse behavior, but how does the horse interact with the environment? How does the environment respond to the horse? How are we making those decisions? And how do those decision-making processes carry over to all of horses? So it's not just feral horses, semi-feral horses over here, and domestic horses over here. And so, these are important conversations to be had, so that not just between us, but obviously for people in general to think deeper about who horses are, ways that we can incorporate horses into different parts of our life beyond just riding an equitation, because there tends to be pegged over here riding an equitation or feral, and all of these opportunities in between for that peaceful coexistence that we talk about and we'll be talking about, especially when we get to Eriskay.
I was just going to say, listening to all of you talking, it was reminding me of something I read by Yuval Noah Harari, who he's a big hero of mine. I love his writing, and I can't remember it exactly, but it was something he was talking about teaching, and he was saying that the role of a teacher is not to give people more information or give students more information, because there's plenty, we all have lots of information. It's about sharing and the links and the connections and the sort of light bulb moments of talking about horses in equine assisted therapy, and then the horses in conservation grazing, and just the links, and it just really reminded me of that, hearing all of you talking. Obviously there's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different expertise, so I'm so excited. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. And then it starts to pop up all the competency people have, like Anne. Oh, and I'm also actually a sociologist.
Oh, yeah, by the way.
Yeah, it always amazes me what people know and what they have done and the experiences and being in Ethiopia, or it's just like, wow, there is so much. Oh, yeah, I'm also super excited.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to... Oh, sorry.
Go on, Theo.
No, I was just going to say it's, as much as this is a workshop for everyone, I think it's also, for me, it's exciting to hear everyone's different backgrounds and the work that they do, because, like, hopefully, from my perspective, this is gonna help the lives of the ponies that we're going to see, like the management that we think about, the way that we work with these animals. This could have an impact on how we manage our horses, and hopefully that could extend to the organization across the UK. And so I think hopefully we're really going to make a change for the horses, which is it's also really exciting. And it's great that everyone's got personal interests and things that hopefully we'll be able to discuss, but I'm just really excited about what this might mean for our ponies, so it's really exciting.
I was thinking along the same lines, and I was going to say that as I'm sitting here thinking, we haven't even touched into the sort of practical structure of how this course is going to run, which is fine because it's a very sort of open and fluid framework. But it's probably a really good idea for us to spend the time early on just to really have these discussions about what all of our backgrounds are, what our perspectives are, because there's an absolute wealth of information just from this very short conversation we've had. So I'll just mention now that on the Monday morning when we start, I've organised the education bothy at the Highland Wildlife Park. So I think that will be a really good place for us to start. I think as much as we want to get out and see the horses and be on the marsh, we will probably lose ourselves in that as well. So perhaps the first sort of morning could be spent just, in this very nice space in the zoo, and just really touch base with all of this. So just on a practical level, I think if people think that's a good idea, it might be a nice way to spend the first few hours and then get out there, because the wildlife park is just a few miles away from the reserve.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, Bonnie. And I think also I would like for us to discuss a little bit what about observation is. And as I talked about our lenses, so we stay aware when we go out and not just lose ourselves in as you say, in the delight of being there and seeing the horses, but actually being really self-aware about what we do and what we notice and what we think when we see it, and taking different perspectives also when we do observe them. And I'd like to have a little bit of discussions around that, if you think that's a good idea beforehand.
And I also think that I know that, for example, Henry's only going to be with us for a few days, and so we have some flexibility in terms of what we talk about and when we talk about it. So maximizing, who's there and what we're, just we have just letting everybody know that we have flexibility in terms of our topics and what we choose to focus on. We'll cover a lot anyway, but really making sure that the individuals who are there for just portions of the time, we can focus maybe a little bit more on those specific topics. And really, from my selfish perspective, maximizing my listening to them, and getting input.
And I also think I really love the concept of us going out to the horses and be where they live, instead of us being in classrooms the whole time and bringing them into us or into an arena or into a smaller pasture or whatever to study them. So this is such a, for me, part of this coexistence we talk about, like we actually go to them instead. And in different places, not only in one, but we have this opportunity to visit them in different places.
Nice. I think luckily for us as well, the weather looks good. So
Yeah.
I've never been to Scotland in the summer, so you're going to have to tell me what normal weather is.
Well, sadly, as
It's the same as the winter.
as a conservation, I'd have to say nothing is normal anymore.
Okay.
That's true.
honest.
Yeah. So a lot of excitement, I hear. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions so far?
No questions other than just logistical ones, but I expect that's for a separate time. But yeah, I'd just like to add my excitement to the mixture. I think this is just such a fantastic opportunity, and I want to thank everybody for organising it and making it available. And I'm so pleased that I can manage to come to the first part. So thank you again. Really looking forward to it.
If you have some logistics question that you like, because Bonnie is here, so if there is something in particular you...
Yeah,
Well,
happy to answer if I can.
What time and how do we get into the zoo?
Okay, I don't know the time. Did we agree on the time yet? We haven't discussed the starting time. I was thinking 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
How does that sound to everybody? Is that, yeah, 9 o'clock. Oh, okay, but I'll need to check that with the park because it doesn't open till 10. So what you'll do is you'll come to the Highland Wildlife Park, which is obviously really easy to find. And I will give the gateman a list of names, and they'll let you in. They'll show you where to park, and then you just walk up to the education bothy, which is not far from the car park, and it's sort of situated on the top of the hill. If there's a problem with that because of the park not opening till 10, I will let you know, because there's also a back road that we might be able to go in. But yeah, I think if we go for a 9 o'clock start at the Highland Wildlife Park, and I'll email around the details of how to get there or any special sort of joining instructions.
And some of us will meet already on Sunday and pitch our tents and stuff in the afternoon. So it will be a little bit of opportunity for us to meet and greet there. That's correct, Bonnie?
Yep. Any specific equipment or just general kind of outdoor clothes and that sort of thing?
I think outdoor clothes, something to write on, possibly sort of waterproof paper if you have it, or one of those little things, clipboards that opens up, and binoculars if you have them, certainly would be useful. No, there's not really any specific equipment that you're going to need.
That's fine, thank you.
To record what.
Yeah, okay.
I should say apologies from my colleague Jessica Maxwell just now. She has to be in another meeting, but I know she's very much looking forward to a couple of days. She's at a meeting on egg on the Monday, so it'll just be me on the Monday, and then we'll work out between us how we try and cover as much of the rest of the week as we can.
Great.
And that's fine. We are looking forward to have you there. So everybody needs to sort out how they can make this work, I think.
Yes. Well, it is quite a long course, isn't it? I mean, considering it started off as 3 days.
Yeah,
Yes,
you had lots of opportunities, and so we're like, yes, we can add that, and so it grew. It's exciting, and yeah, it grew into something that was a little bit longer than we originally intended. But again, taking advantage of the opportunities, and this gives us a chance to go through it and have great experience with different people in different places, with the hopes of repeating this next year if possible. So we'll talk about that over the week too.
And I just wanted to add, I think in terms of the camping stuff, I'm trying to organize as best I can a place for those who are camping to have somewhere to cook something, even if it's just like an egg or some beans or make a cup of tea. We've also got access to a toilet that you guys are welcome to use, but what we don't have is a shower, as far as I'm aware. So I did want to throw it out there. If people are excited for some wild swimming, then I know a lot of good places to go swimming. But my phone's about to die, so I'm going to have to say goodbye, everyone, for now.
Thank you very much. I look forward to wild showering.
Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you, Bonnie. I'll catch up with you again this week.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Theo.
Brilliant. Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to throw out an invitation. I don't know. I may have to retract it because I'll have to ask my host. But I'm going to be staying with my daughter in Botergarten, which is just a few miles up the road from Inchmarshes and the wildlife park. And obviously, she has showers and that sort of thing. So it may be that we can organise an evening where you guys could come. It depends how many people there are, obviously. But if she's happy, then it may be that I can offer you a shower evening in her house, and people can come and have a wash in a comfortable seat. So let me ask her, and I can let Bonnie know if that's going to be possible, but perhaps on the Wednesday evening or something like that, if people would like a bit of home comfort for a short time. So I'll let you know, but that may well be possible.
That's a kind thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We might end up being very dirty and stinky.
Okay.
The ones of us who camp all the time.
That's okay. They're outdoor people, and her husband is a mountain guide, so he's used to being dirty and stinky as well. So it should be fine. But I'll ask, and I'm sure there won't be a problem. But I'll let you know as soon as I can.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. And since we do this is the first time we do this together, Emily, me and Bonnie, and offer this opportunity, and with all of you great people who come in different days and ways. So it's a bit of a learning for us as well, of course. And I'm really, really happy that we are making it happen. And I hope it's just the first of many.
Yeah, so if we're sort of coming towards the end, then I think I'll just say that any questions, just email me or message me or whatever. As most of you know, I'm on holiday on Tiree. I don't want to show off or anything, but I'm having a great time. Yeah, and I don't often have signal. I seem to have found a beach with great signal, so that's good. So although I won't get straight back to you, I will answer. And then once I get home at the weekend, I will send out the sort of practical side of it, like how to get into the park. And I think on the first morning, once we've all met up, we'll probably work out the framework between us all, rather than having a structure other than the sort of the framework that we've got, so we can see what subjects would be best focused on what days, depending on who's there and all of that type of stuff. Because I think before we're all together in a room, it might be a bit too complicated. And then talking about being together in a room, obviously we've got COVID to consider, and although it's all going to be within the guidelines and everything, just if we can all be aware of that. I don't know if some people have some concerns about that. We could maybe think about doing lateral flow tests or something before we all went. It's really whatever makes people feel comfortable with that space, and we can be in there with the doors open, but the majority of our time is going to be outside anyway, so it's just another thing to put into the mix these days, it seems.
Yes,
Yes.
And Emily and I come from abroad, both of us, and we have been repeatedly tested for weeks now. And we continue to do that in Scotland. We're also fully vaccinated, so I think we are low risk people. Anyone having anything else they want to share or ask about before we close this meeting? No? Happy to see you all, and thank you for being here today and taking his last question about, like, I am going to post this in the group of Learning Wild, and if anybody are uncomfortable with that, please let me know, because we have had a lot of questions for people who could not come today, and even perhaps not come to this specific course, but they are so interested in what we are doing, so they wanted us to record this meeting. You're all fine with it?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'll say thanks, and I see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to
soon.
meeting everyone.
Yeah,
Me too.
it's gonna be great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.
And I will stop recording somewhere.